Is there anybody out there?
Good morning, I slept the whole night through. Good morning to you, Mary Louise. Good morning to you.
He's in a singing mode today, by the way.
Sam, good morning. Sally and Ian, good morning.
Morning, everybody. Are you all alright? Yes, we're on week 8 of our lockdown this week. I've just calculated.
8.
We're on the week 8. Oh my gosh. Week 8. That's 2 months.
I've got no sound again on my feed, apparently. This is common. This seems to be common. Mr. Nolan, David Loveday, it's lovely to see you.
Can you give us a shout if you can?
Yes.
Tom?
This is very odd that my feed.
Fine.
Yes, Sally and Ian can't hear. Maybe it's because you're a long way away. Sally and Ian are in Nebraska, and that's a very, very long way.
I know.
So maybe they can't hear. Mary Louise can hear us, but Mary Louise lives much closer, doesn't she?
Morning, Beck and Sam and Jan.
Rachel, it's lovely to have you with us. All the gang is coming together. How lovely. How nice.
Yeah, how do? I'm feeling a bit zombified this morning for some reason.
Yes, you slept very well.
I slept really deeply and really well. Like, I don't even remember my dreams or anything. And so I'm hoping this coffee is going to wake me up. And, on week 8 of lockdown.
I, on the other hand, am quite perky this morning. And quite awake.
He is. He slept in a bit longer than me, that's why. So 6:30 every morning, my body clock wakes me up. And yes, the light is coming through the blinds. So we have some who have sound, some who doesn't, depending perhaps on what you are watching on as well. So just double check that you have your volume up.
Yes.
So week 8 of lockdown, is everybody just as confused as what we are?
We watched Boris last night, and at the end of it, I thought Boris did spectacularly, but came out at the end of it not quite sure what we were allowed to do and what we're not. And the experts are still trying to work this out, I think.
If you could just write it down in like this pointed thing for us, that would be really helpful. Because I don't know like what I can and what I can't do.
Well, in good news, we do know this, is that we can do more exercise. We're allowed to do unlimited exercise outside now. Unlimited. So in celebration of that, we've ordered a basketball.
We got hoops up at our local park, and we're going to go like back to teenage years.
So we're going to be shooting baskets later on today. It should arrive this morning.
Yes.
And so we will undoubtedly put that on Instagram or something like that, because it's quite funny, 2 hobbit-sized people playing basketball.
Yes, we definitely won't be able to bounce the ball in between our legs, because the ratio of our legs to our bodies is quite small.
I'm not going there.
Like like when you walk and you put the basketball in between your legs.
You need to stop.
I don't know why that's a problem. Man alive.
Julie, it's lovely to have you.
So yeah,
with
we're going to go and play. We're going to go and shoot some hoops later on, or whatever it's called.
So you could come down, actually, and this is another thing you're allowed to do. With people of the same household, you're allowed to do physical exercise, which I thought you were allowed to do anyway.
Yeah, and then didn't they also say that you could meet up with a friend to do?
No, you can meet up with a friend. You can meet up with a friend, and you can sit on the park, or you can sunbathe on the beach with a friend, as long as you maintain social distancing.
No, I thought you could go to the beach with your own household, but you could meet up a friend as long as you were social distancing. I have no idea what I can and can't do, people.
I don't know. I think you can go to the beach as long as you maintain more than 2 metres distance from you and the sand.
Yeah, we don't want to come to the beach at the moment. It's 27-mile-an-hour wind down here. Did anyone see the video yesterday when I went to watch the waves? Oh, there was a little bit. My heart was going on that. But after that, I didn't share this on Facebook because I thought it would be really wrong. But after that, I took a video, and 3 dog walkers had walked past me with their 2 dogs, and I thought, goodness me, I'm not gonna follow them because like the waves are really gonna get them. You saw the waves on the path, and so they went for it. Except they got caught and I managed to get it on. I managed to actually get it on video, which I didn't share, of this wave coming right over the barriers and wallop. And when I mean wallop, like if you want to see the video, just ask me and I'll send it to you.
It's epic.
But you can hear me laughing on it, and I didn't mean to. And this poor dog, like, it wouldn't walk anymore. It was in shock. It was like that, and they had to carry it back through the waves again. It was a little bit funny.
Now, I saw all this live, but I was actually sitting in the flat. Jo had a camera going, and she was on live on Instagram, and I was sitting with a nice warm cup of coffee indoors.
Yeah, he left me all by myself down in the big waves, and I was a little bit. Ooh. Yeah, it was good though. It was good. Ooh.
So the good news is that this morning is we can do more exercise. We can sunbathe on a beach now the sun's disappeared, and we are allowed to drive to go to an outdoor activity. So if you want to,
but please don't crowd our beaches.
Yeah, we've kind of enjoyed having Thanet to ourselves. So
we've had all the beach to the Thanatarians.
It's been rather nice. Yes,
it has been really nice.
Stay at home, people. Stay at home.
The message is stay at home. Still, stay alert. Stay alert. That's what we were talking about last week, wasn't it? That was kind of like our scripture, like stay alert.
Stay awake. Stay awake.
He must have been watching.
Boris has been watching. Instead of stay awake, because that would be plagiarism, it's stay alert.
It's stay alert. You know, because you never know when a ninja is going to come up behind you and attack you. Stay alert, people. Next bit of cool news, though. I think this is
While
cool.
you're talking about ninjas.
Oh, so there's this grandma who's a gaming grandma. So she videos her doing like Call of Duty in her basement. For a grandma, that's amazing. I could never play Call of Duty with the boys. I was always getting shot, or I'd get too angry. And so her cool name is Tactical Grandma. And so these kids come online to watch her. She does online streaming in her basement for like Call of Duty and stuff. And they end up talking to her, and she ends up doing counselling with these young people. And I think that's an amazing way to infiltrate their lair.
Yeah, and I think she goes on. She does this on YouTube as well, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So she videos herself playing on YouTube, and just while she's playing, she's spouting good stuff, words of wisdom. What a great thing! But she's got this epic setup. They had a picture of her in her basement. I mean, this isn't a grotty old basement. This is a gamer's paradise, and she's down there. What a girl!
Like gaming on Call of Duty is far too fast for me. Yeah. It's far too fast. I play pool and that kind of stuff on games, but I can't shoot people. I just can't do it. I'm too slow.
I have to admit that I don't play many online games, but I do like the old farming game, you know, where you grow potatoes and things like that. I don't know whether anybody else is into that sort of stuff. Things where nothing ever happens, where the farmers don't fight each other and everybody's nice to each other. And the worst thing that happens is a storm comes and you lose a few scarecrows or something.
Yeah, that wasn't a game for us a few years ago, though, with our allotment. That was actually a reality. And yeah, that was quite nice. But also, in the good news...
The good news, yes. The good news is that there's been unexpected... The unexpected benefits of lockdown have been something which has been recurring again and again on all the news medias have been talking about this. And I saw a lovely little one just this morning. And it's somebody, and this is starting to go a little bit viral, which I thought was lovely, is people are writing the names of plants in chalk on the pavement next door to the plant. So if there's a weed growing, like a dandelion, it will have the Latin name of it, you know, Dandelionus maximus or whatever, written next to it, and a little bit of information about it. What a great use of a bit of time to rehabilitate the weeds.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Down on the seafront, we've had people writing poetry on the walls in chalks, and it's been really lovely.
It's been nothing but nice messages that we've seen on the cliffs with the chalk and everything. It's actually been rather refreshing as we went for a really long walk the other day, actually, didn't we? We went for my goodness, we went on a long walk, and we discovered some horses in a field. And it was about 9k.
12k.
Oh,
12k.
12k walk.
But the incredible thing, I mean, this is just amazing. Incredible thing is we walked and right out in the middle of the countryside, and a couple came towards us. And as the guy walked past, we had binoculars and we were watching. There was some birds in the trees, and he said, he says there's a cuckoo back there. And I said, really? And I turned around and saw him, and he looked at me. He said, I know you. I used to cut your hair. Now, I haven't had my hair cut in Thanet for 25 years. And sure enough, he recognised me in Thanet, who I was, and his wife came up behind, and she was the one who used to cut my hair, and she recognised me as well, and I recognised her. Incredible. 25 years, where's it gone?
I know. Clearly he hasn't aged.
I clearly have exactly the same hair, well I do now, as I did 25 years ago when I left. I've got this sort of American evangelist kind of thing going on here.
He's got a quiff to remember.
But today is the day which we're going to try and buy some clippers and clip it all off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, but I didn't find the cuckoo though. Didn't find it. But we did find some reed warblers. And I downloaded an app called Warbler that works like Shazam. So if you're wanting to know what a bird is singing, you press the record button right by it, and it records the bird sound and then gives you like the top 3 options of what it could be. And we discovered some reed warblers. Reed warblers, which is kind of cool actually.
And so you could actually incorporate both of those ideas, and if you see a nice bird, take out a piece of chalk and just write next to it what sort of bird it is on the pavement, little arrow towards it. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work.
Maybe not. Let's talk about talking points.
Oh, okay. Talking points.
Talking points. We were talking this week. We were talking yesterday about what we were going to talk about all week long, and we thought we would bounce onto the subject of compassion. Compassion, because it's a big subject, but it's something which is desperately needed, and we all enjoy compassion. We enjoy it when people are compassionate towards us, but it's something we often find hard to generate. We're compassionate normally for people who don't need compassion, or we're compassionate for people who are lovely, beautiful people who get loads of compassion anyway. How do we generate compassion for a world that's gone crazy and for people that are glitchy and snarly? And how do we do that? And from the good book, our word of wisdom is Colossians 3, and it says, as God's people, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness and humility. As God's children, clothe yourself with compassion. How do we do that? What is compassion? What does it look like?
Yeah, wear it. Compassion means shared pain. Basically, it's a bit like empathy, I guess.
Together.
Yeah.
Passion, the old word passion does not mean ho-ho. Passion is pain. Co-passion. Talk about the passion of Christ, pain of Christ. Co-passion, to share the same pain.
Yeah.
Latin.
Yeah, and so there's this... first of all, like having compassion, it means you've got to have compassion on yourself first, because it has to come from the inside out, doesn't it? And so we often beat ourselves up so much. Like the internal dialogue in our brain, I don't know about you, but mine always tells me that I'm not good enough. It always tells me that I'm missing the mark. So I went out for a run yesterday, and I found it so hard, like my feet were dragging along the pavement because I'd been for a long walk the day before, and I was like really going for myself, and I was like, come on! I was actually shouting at myself, you can do better than this!
I was running a little bit away from her because she was the crazy lady.
If you heard anyone shouting around the Cliftonville area, it was me, and I was really going for myself. And it's so, sometimes you are your own worst critic. And so you almost have to get that internal dialogue sorted in your own brain first before you can actually share that with someone else.
Yeah, just imagine with what's going on in your head, that your self-talk. Just imagine that there was somebody else that you were living with, and you were talking to them continually the same self-talk that goes on in your mind. How screwed up they would be.
Well, assuming that you've got the same self-talk as me, by the way.
It's a common human condition. Very few of us stand up and look ourselves in the mirror and go, oh, how beautiful I am, how wonderful I am.
Yeah.
Most of us, we are our own worst critics. But imagine if, just for a moment, if the self-talk that you went on in your brain was verbalised to the person that you live with constantly, 24/7, in the same way that it is to yourself, reflected to yourself in your own brain. just imagine the damage that would do to the other person. And so we damage ourselves this way. We twist and damage our own psychology and the way we view life. And that in itself makes it very difficult to show true compassion to other people, because we've already planted these seeds of anger and these seeds of doubt, these seeds of negativity within us. So when we talk about having compassion on ourselves, it's not a selfish thing. It's something, it's an extension of recognising that we're all interconnected, that we can't separate you and I. And a great Zen master said this, and it's so right. He said, the greatest delusion in the world is this, that you are there and I am here. The idea that we are separate from each other, that we live disconnected from each other, this illusion of separateness, which is enforced in us almost from the day we're born, in our education, the way we're educated in the West, that I am an island, I am a rock, nobody comes near me.
I am Ibiza.
I am separate from everybody else. I'm separate, we can see it in the way we view creation, is I'm separate from creation. I'm a user of creation, not recognising that I am part of it.
Yeah.
It's all one symbiotic whole. We rely on it, it interconnects, it interbees. When we recognise that, then compassion becomes obvious, because when I'm compassionate on you, I'm actually compassionate on another part of me.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think the only way that you're able to hurt someone else is to separate them from you, isn't it? To other them, the others. And so the only way you justify being able to treat someone or judge someone else is that you're like, I'm just going to separate myself from them. I'm not going to feel the way they feel, because if I did, then I wouldn't do it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we did this in the war, particularly the First World War, but the Hun. You know, you see the little pictures, the cartoons that were produced then of very stereotypical Huns, these Germans, and one of the remarkable things people found when they're in the trenches, when they stop shooting each other, is that the Germans were just the same as them. They were people, exactly the same.
We're all made of the same stuff, lovely people. We're all made of dirt and breath and spirit. We're all made of the same stuff. And that's where you kind of get your co-passion from. But I remember there was one person that taught me about how to have compassion. One person who, very unexpectedly, she was homeless, and her name was Gabriella, and she taught me my biggest life lesson. I'd never ever even really stopped to consider anyone who was homeless on the street, anything like that. But we found her in the doorway of an estate agent's where we lived, and like something in me just like rose up. I don't know what it was, but it had to come from the inside out. If you try and fake compassion, then it don't work. And so I started like, she didn't speak a word of English, not a clue. We used to speak in sign language, and what time we were going to meet of a night, I would count on my fingers and stuff. And I ended up, I couldn't go to bed unless I put her to bed first. So I used to go and feed her in the doorway, and just sit with her, and we used to talk. She used to think that I could understand her, and I used to think that she could understand me in this really weird way. So it goes to show that language actually has nothing to do with it. But she taught me how to have compassion on other people genuinely, but actually she taught me the biggest lesson about myself as well.
Yeah, she was lovely.
And that's where the Sanctuary Homeless Shelter was all kind of birthed out of. It was Gabriella that kind of sparked this whole seed thing off, and then once compassion starts in you don't know where it comes from.
It is this collapsing of the separateness. Realise that I'm not separate. I mean, just look at your own body. Now, we'd like to think this is my body, but this thing which you consider to be your body, when you die, it will break down into its component parts and go into the ground, and it will become other things. It will become vegetables, it will become trees, it will become... The components won't sit in the ground forever. They just preserved. they'll change into other things. The moisture will be absorbed. The moisture will end up going back up into clouds and becoming rain. The body you have now has been recycled thousands and thousands, probably billions of times over the centuries, and become lots of other things. So there's nothing separate about my body. Right now, I'm borrowing some bits of earth and some bits of water and carbon and other stuff, and I've borrowed it from the earth, which is this body I now live in. And one day I'm going to give all these bits back. Right now I'm breathing air which you have breathed and everybody else has also breathed. My enemies have breathed, my friends have breathed, things I hate have breathed, things I love have breathed this same air. And the oxygen that I need comes from the trees, which love the carbon dioxide I breathe out. I rely on them. The trees are the other half of my respiratory system. So you cut down the trees, I've killed off my ability to breathe. And even when you look at a tree, here's the thing, a tree and a lung, you look at them in a microscope, they look identical.
Yes,
it's very, very hard to tell the difference between the way the internal view of a lung and a tree, very, very similar. It's just a tree upside down, the lungs, the trunk coming up here. We're all interconnected.
We're all one.
As you look into that deeply, it changes you.
Yes, you're actually part of it here, people. You're not separate. You're not. And I think that gives you encouragement, doesn't it? Because when you feel alone, actually you're not. You've actually interconnected. Interconnected. Thank you very, very much. You're interconnected with everything. You're part of what this planet needs and what happens to it. And that also means with other people as well.
And this is one of the great problems we have in Western psychology. Coming back to putting my psychologist's hat back on, is this illusion of separateness creates alienation. And we've all heard this word bandied around. Alienation is the feeling of being alone. One of the biggest problems in mental health right now is loneliness.
Yeah.
Big problem.
Yeah.
And a sense of alienation comes from that sense of being separate. It's the obvious, necessary next step from our illusion of separateness, which we've built up in Western philosophy to believe in this illusion of separateness. And the result of that, the child of separateness, is alienation. And alienation, loneliness. And yet I'm not alone, because I'm part of all of this. And if I believe that my spirit came from God, that I'm inbreathed with God, then I'm not even separate in that respect, because the very spirit, the very thing that I am, which makes me alive, is shared with Him. It comes from Him. It's a part of Him. And so I am part of this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Spirit, soul and body. There's not a single atom of me which is separate from anything else. And even my body, right now, over the period of 7 years, almost every single atom in my body is going to be renewed. It's going to burn out, break down, fall away. The skin's falling off of me all the time, but it's being renewed.
Including bone.
And even the Bible says that our spirit is being renewed. The inner man is being renewed constantly, day by day, by the inbreathing of the breath of God. And as God breathes in, breathes out into our lungs, we breathe in. Constantly. We are part of all of this. We're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to come back to this bit about how our internal dialogue, if that's okay.
Please do.
Because that's also a major thing in mental health, isn't it? The way we think of ourselves. And I know people say, you think of yourself too often. But actually that internal dialogue in our brain is very, very real. And I don't know, it's not something that we create ourselves. There is this subconscious almost going on in the back of your brain just saying, they looked at you funny. You're definitely on your own. No one's texted you to check up on you. There's this constant kind of like this nagger in your head all the time. And so it's finding a way of how do you switch that off.
Now normally as children you don't see this in children. So a young child at a gathering will run from person to person to person and will interact with all the people, unless they're shy. You know, they may be shy, that's okay. Shyness is a very normal part of the childlike condition as well. But if they're feeling confident, they won't differentiate between a black and a white person, between an old person and a young person.
There's no labels.
All the labels have disappeared. The differentiation has broken down. And because of that, they'll just connect with anyone and everyone. It's a wonderful thing, and that's because they haven't yet had this sense of ego, this sense of identity so solidified as in a concrete form that they see other and self, friend and enemy. And part of spiritual renewal is coming back to that childlike state. Where you recognise the self in the other, where you recognise you in the other person and the other person in you. We're not alone, we're not separate.
No. So that internal dialogue effectively needs to be rewritten, if that makes sense. So there's got to be another author that happens in your brain that tells you, actually, you're all part of it, you know? You're not... Don't think yourself separate to somebody else, and in that, the only response that you can have when you see that, unless obviously you're in that thing of wanting to hurt yourself because of pain, to express pain, is that the only response you have is that you then have that mutual love going on, if that makes sense. This is quite a deep subject, actually, for compassion, isn't it? Wearing compassion. How do you have compassion on yourself and others?
I think we're going to be talking about this for a few days, but I want to leave you with this idea that if we're all interconnected, then the whole world is a closed system. A closed system. You know, a closed system, there's nothing coming in, nothing going out. Closed system, nothing's new is coming in and nothing is ever escaping. That's a fact in physics. And if that's true, then if we don't have compassion on ourselves, then we are being brutal to a part of the whole. In the same way that if we inject into this world, if we inject bitterness and anger and frustration and this sort of thing into the world, it's a closed system. If I turn my anger and my lack of compassion towards another human being, when I do that, I'm creating more of that feeling in the whole of this closed system. And so the whole of the closed system becomes a problem. It's a little bit like the idea that we thought that we could pollute the atmosphere and it wouldn't affect us. Of course it affects us. One of the things we're going to discover over the next 100 years is that every negative thought, emotion, word, attitude that we project out there comes right back and slaps us in the face because we're interconnected with us. It's like fighting for peace. You can't fight for peace. All you're doing is injecting more problems into more war into the problem itself. The problem is war. The problem is anger. It's like thinking if somebody cuts you up on the motorway and you think the way I'm going to solve this is by cutting them up. That's not going to solve the problem. It's like making love for virginity. You can't. It doesn't work, right? Do you understand? They're two opposite things. And so if we want to bring a change in the world, we have to bring a different perspective. We have to bring compassion. And this is why Jesus said, love your enemies. Turn the other cheek. He was right into this. This isn't some sort of new age thing. Jesus was right into this. He said, look, lads, if somebody slaps you on the left cheek, turn to them the right cheek, because it is you slapping you.
Yeah.
It is another part of you slapping you. Have compassion on them. Don't resist evil, Jesus says. In other words, just pull back. You don't have to stand there and keep taking
Disengage!
Just disengage. You know, it's okay. I'm disengaging here. You leave you with your anger, let it burn out. But I'm not going to increase that because I want to show compassion. Here endeth the lesson.
Wow, take that away, people, on a Monday morning.
Man, that's a lot, isn't it?
Chew that one over. Well, we're going to be chatting about compassion.
I need stronger coffee.
I don't think so. we're going to talk about compassion like all week long. We love these, like taking a subject and just like unpacking it. If there's anything you want us to talk about as well, just let us know. If anything that would help you, perhaps you need in your family, or you think, how do I get through this? How do I deal with that? Just let us know, and we'll see if we can like shoehorn that in. But we will be back with you on a Wednesday.
Indeed.
On this week 8 of lockdown, and perhaps we'll know a bit more about what we can and what we can't do. But don't come to the beach because it's too windy.
The beach is a terrible
You won't
place.
like
No,
it.
it's not nice. It's wet, and sand gets between your toes. It's not nice at all.
I had sand in my ears from yesterday from the waves. Actually, found that last night. But have an amazing day. Have compassion on yourself. Try and change that internal player going on, and just await for natural compassion to arise.
God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. Be safe, people.
We love you lots, by the way.
Always. Bye now.
Bye.